Welcome to the YouTube Creators Hub podcast, where we help you conquer the internet one video at a time. We cover everything from how to start a YouTube channel to how to make a video go viral. And now, here's your host, the one and only Dusty Porter.
Hello and welcome back, creators. This is episode 68 of the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. My name is Dusty, the host of this wonderful show. If you haven't already, go on over to iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play, wherever you consume your podcasting content. Slap that subscribe button. That way, every single Wednesday, when we release a new episode, you will be updated and you can listen to it and consume it right then and there. Again, guys, thank you so much for making this show what it is today. 68 episodes in, and we're just getting started. I do want to remind you guys, this show, as always, is brought to you by the fine folks over at TUBEBUDDY, TUBEBUDDY. It is a free browser plugin that can help make your life easier. I am testing, and so are a bunch of other TubeBuddy enthusiasts, a new feature called Videolytics or video analytics, which basically every time you pull up a video from yourself or a competitor on the right-hand side of the page now, you're going to get in-depth analytics of that video from TubeBuddy. Guys, it has been so helpful, and that's just one of the many amazing features that TubeBuddy is going to have and has currently. So if you haven't already, click the link in the show notes, download TubeBuddy. I promise you, I call it my secret weapon for YouTube content creation. You will not regret it. Also, we've had a new sponsor the past few episodes, and they're staying on long term. I'm so excited about that. The guys over at Audio Hero. It's like a Netflix for royalty-free music and sound effects for your content. Have you ever thought, oh man, I need some music for this video, but I'm worried about it getting copyright flagged, or I don't want it to get taken down because of copyright music? Guys, go over to audiohero.com. Again, the Netflix for royalty-free music. Over 250,000 tracks and sound effects to choose from. For as little as $10 a month, you can download 50 different tracks per month, all royalty-free, and you can use on your content forever. There's not an end date. So go check them out, audiohero.com. This week's interview is with Mr. Lon Seidman, the first return guest on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. But the reason why I wanted to bring him back on the show is because Lon, since I've interviewed him last time, has made the transition from YouTube hobbyist to now he is a YouTube creator full-time. So I wanted to talk to him about the process of transitioning from a, side hustle, as YouTube being his side deal, to now YouTube being his full focus. So we talk about that. We also talk about getting products to review on your channel, and he's got some really great insight on how you can do that very cheaply, even if you don't have a lot of money to invest in the beginning, and so much more. If you're a YouTube creator and you want help with anything on YouTube, I think this interview is going to be valuable to you. Again, don't forget to go to the website. If you got a question, click the link on the sidebar there, record your question, and you could be featured on next week's episode. Go over to iTunes, wherever you consume your content, and please leave us a review, whether it's positive or negative, and I will give you a shout out on next week's episode. Thank you guys as always, and let's jump into this week's conversation. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the conversation for this week's episode. I actually believe, as I started to think about this episode this week, that this is the first returning guest we have on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. So I would like for all of you guys here in the community to give a warm welcome, even though I know you can't literally, but figuratively, as you're listening to this, give a warm welcome back to Mr. Lon Seidman, where on his YouTube channel, lon.tv, he gives honest, concise gadget reviews. He helps you try before you buy. Lon, how are you doing today?
I'm good. I feel the warmth, even though it just is a vibe.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is what I want here on the YouTube Creators Hub podcast. Now, Lon, since the last time we spoke, as I just mentioned to you off air, you have since gone full time with this whole YouTube thing. So we will touch on that later on in the interview. But just briefly, how has that been?
It's been great. It's been more about my personal sanity than anything else, because I'm sure you've experienced this also, where you start hitting your stride with your YouTube channel and you want to work more on it. And I had a full-time job and 2 kids, and I said, I'm killing myself. And what's been great about the last 2 months is, I'm just into my second month now, has been that I've been able to keep up the pace that I had before, but I'm getting my nights and weekends off, and that's been a real a real plus because I can work on this stuff during the day, which I couldn't do before.
Yeah, and that is important, and it does show in your content, right? Because what happens is you're able to spend more time with your family's happier, you're able to get more sleep, so you're not doing this as just a side hustle, you're doing this and you're able to invest the normal people's working hours into this job, so it definitely comes through in your content, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. And also when I'm not happy with the way something came out, I'll do the takeover again. Whereas before I would have just said, you know what, it's 3:00 in the morning. Let's just go with it. So that's been good. I think the breaking point for me was kid number 2. And what was intriguing about the whole family dynamic is that having a second kid is an exponential increase in commitment, which is my most important commitment in life is my family. So something had to give, and I was fortunate that my finances were at a place where I could make the leap here and not starve the family. So that is thankfully I'm very lucky that I was able to do it.
Yes, I only have one kid at the moment. Definitely hope that we're able to have another one in the future, but I can definitely see how adding another little rugrat could definitely change my life even more dramatically than having the first one. So as we all love our families, being able to spend more time with them is definitely a good thing. Now, the reason why I have brought Lon on again is to talk about a specific topic. And today, one of the main topics that I want to talk about with Lon today is basically as YouTube changes, and as of late, YouTube has been making a lot of changes, Lon. As you and I both know as full-time creators, and as the people listening to this probably already know, YouTube is always changing their algorithm. They are always changing up it seems like the layout of their design, which is going to be something that rolls out here in the very near future. If you don't know that, I have some videos over on my YouTube channel on that. Also, they are always changing where tools are and things like that, which is one of the reasons I love using TubeBuddy. Although they are a partner of the show, I always know where stuff is when I use TubeBuddy. So, Lon, my first question to you is this. Being a YouTuber that does this full-time now, and just a YouTuber in general, so not even coming at this as a full-time creator, but knowing what YouTube does and knowing that they are an external platform and that you obviously don't need to solely rely on them, how are you able to pivot and to change and to make those necessary changes as YouTube evolves?
Well, it's funny. I think I'm fortunate in the sense that I never approached my channel as one where I'm trying to grow a subscriber base necessarily. So I certainly am focused on subscribers now. And I think we talked a little bit about this last time, that a large part of what I do, because I'm reviewing technology products that are commodity items, essentially, in the sense that people are out searching for information on a product they're looking to purchase. And that's how people eventually find me. So probably about 75 to 80% of my traffic now is just search and algorithm, which is crazy, right? But it's funny, though, that as the subscriber base grows, that percentage has been growing slowly, as far as the subscriber views versus the algorithm views. But by and large, I have been an algorithmic commodity on the platform. So a lot of what I've been doing has been producing content that feeds the algorithm in many cases. So I made some decisions early on to not cover certain types of products because they were not being searched as heavily as products that I'm kind of reviewing now, which are a lot of the low-cost PCs and things that have a greater presence out there amongst consumers. And that was a conscious decision because the algorithm was not working for me when I started. The other thing I think I'm fortunate with is that I'm not doing entertainment content. So a lot of what I am doing is in a industry that is, I would say a very successful industry, consumer electronics and technology. It kind of drives the world right now. So there's a lot of advertising revenue out there for this industry. And I think I'm in a safer place because I don't cover topics that are not family friendly on my show. And I'm actually very cautious to not do things like swear on camera or use language that might, get you into a place where you could be demonetized, for example. And I've been doing that from the get-go. And yes, it's not good for creatives to be limited like that, but for what I do, because it's not necessarily all that creative, I think I'm in a safer place. And I haven't seen a decline in revenue like other people are talking about. So I've been pretty steady, and my numbers have been pretty consistent.
Yeah, and how important is it as a creator to keep in touch with what YouTube is doing and what the platform is doing, and reading the YouTube blogs and the YouTube creator stuff that they're releasing, letting us know what they're doing with the algorithm, what they're doing, since the adpocalypse or whatever people want to call it. Like how important is it as a creator, Lon? How much of that stuff are you consuming?
Oh, everything. Because I'm always making sure. Because again, so I'm so tied to the algorithm that I really need to know exactly what it is that the algorithm wants. It's kind of crazy. Here I am, the human serving the computer, right? The computer mind. But that's really critical. There is a channel. I don't know if you've heard about this channel called Creator Insider.
I have heard about it. Yes.
So I would point people to that. And this is like this stealth YouTube operation where this guy Tom here, he actually works at YouTube. And he's been kind of peeling the layers back a little bit on how things work inside of their company. And it looks like he's working on something related specifically to search and algorithm results right now, because he's been asking on his community page about that, like what people want to see. So I would strongly suggest people look at that. But you have to be on top of this thing. And you know what? The other thing is that you've really got to be mindful of what advertisers, big advertisers, are looking for insofar as the platform is concerned. Because if you're doing something that got caught up in the demonetization thing, this is a long time coming. I think the advertisers were aware of the fact that their stuff was probably showing on objectionable, quote unquote, content. But the agencies knew that they were buying audience. But I think the advertisers are worried about brand safety. So if you have a production that is not going to be brand safe, and really look at it from the standpoint of, would Coca-Cola or Starbucks put an ad next to this if I was on TV? If the answer is no to that question, then you need to start looking for other revenue sources, because this is, you will not have, the brand safety is now built into the system. So it wasn't before, but now it is. And if you're not brand safe, then you need to start looking for other means here, because this is basic economics. People don't want to purchase things that are not going to help their brand, and it certainly shifts the supply and demand as a result. And nobody's entitled to anything on this platform, so you really need to be directing your content to where you will find revenue if that is your goal. And if the revenue is not coming through the passive means, which is the AdSense system, then you need to go out and find advertisers that want to do some native advertising on your channel.
Yeah, and Lon, we've thrown around the word algorithm a lot on this podcast so far. Maybe can you, if you don't mind, expand a little bit about the YouTube algorithm, and maybe some insight on what you look for whenever they're releasing new updates with the algorithm to make sure that your content doesn't get left behind?
Yeah, the hard thing is that YouTube doesn't tell you anything really I don't think they know how their algorithm works, to be honest with you. I do know from my own consumption that it's often putting things I want to see in front of me. But what I have been going on as far as my own strategy here, and this is partly based on what my YouTube, my person, we have people at YouTube when you hit a certain size that you keep in touch with, and they do a channel overview every 6 or 8 months. And the things that he has told me have been, make sure your thumbnails are consistent and very descriptive of the video itself. Make sure your titles are clean. Make sure you've got a lot of descriptive text in the description, that your tags are up to date, all of those things. And for me, it's very easy to do that because I'm focusing on one product per video. And so I'm putting things in my titles that are what people might be searching for. So for example, I just put up a video last night of like this generic tablet that kind of looks like an iPad mini. So what I did for the title here was I put the name of the product first in the title, and then I said iPad mini alternative in the title, just so that it's triggering the things that I think people might be looking for. I occasionally go over to Google Trends, because sometimes I have a video where I'm like, I'm not sure how to title this one. So I go to Google Trends and I start researching keywords and figuring out what's searched most often. I had one just recently. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but there was one where I really spent probably a good 25, 30 minutes just kind of digging through Google Trends to find the exact keyword combination that's going to work. Because one of the nice things about being a channel that's so heavily dependent on the algorithm is that I am the videos that I produce don't do as well in the first month as they do over the lifespan of the video being posted. Whereas a channel that's more subscriber heavy in its viewership would be the opposite. So this is the one I just did the other day. I had a device that works with Google Voice, and I wanted to look for what people out there were looking for in relation to cutting the landline telephone cord. What was the terminology people were using? So landline became a word that I put into the title because that really trended heavily on the Google Trends. And blocking spam phone calls. And I tried to get all that stuff into the title. That's what drove that decision. So really thinking about what people are thinking about when they're searching, and also thinking about just how to get that title of the video to kind of match that query with the right keywords.
Yeah, I can definitely resonate with the point you made there. A lot of my content, I would say it may be even higher than yours. My channel is primarily a tutorial-based channel and also a YouTube educational channel. So I've got a lot of different things on there, but a lot of my videos, 80 to 85% of them, don't really even take off until maybe a month or two after I release the video. Some of them even a great deal longer than that. I've had videos that didn't really explode. I had an Instagram tutorial that I did one time, and I've told this story, but basically about 10 months in, Instagram contacted me and said, hey, could we use this on our training page? And I said, sure, I guess. And after that moment, that video just exploded because it began getting a lot of search juice and search traffic, and the way the algorithm worked, it kind of took off. So you really have to know your channel. You have to know the audience you're trying to reach and what type of content you're creating. Whereas Lon and I create a lot of reviews, informational content, whatever it may be, where we need to be thinking, come Christmas time, what are people going to be searching for? Or come this specific time, what are going to be these words that people are going to be on their phones and searching for while they're at the store, maybe at Best Buy or whatever it may be. So you really have to be in tune with your audience and your content. So I did want Lon to touch briefly on the algorithm because I do believe it's important as creators that not only we try to improve our videos, our quality and our consistency in our content, but we also need to understand the platform. We also need to understand YouTube and how it works and the inner workings of YouTube. And it is a great thing that YouTube provides, Lon, being able to reach a certain amount of subscribers or a certain threshold. They then give you someone like Lon mentioned to talk with, and they give you like a channel review or a channel audit, and they look at your channel and they say, here's what you could be doing better from the inside point of view. And that's a great thing to know. You kind of get a behind the scenes look of what can I do to make sure my content is continuing to grow and my channel is not going to become stagnant. So
and they give you homework and you have a deadline. So when they schedule the second call, you better have all that stuff done. And it's good though, because it pushes you to do that. And clearly, if somebody at YouTube is telling you to do X, Y, and Z, there's a good reason why they're telling you that. And those things really, for me, it was getting the thumbnails. That was my biggest. Prior to getting my thumbnail things set up, I wasn't using thumbnails for a while, and I was just going off whatever whatever it picked. And I branded that and made it more consistent. And I think that's helped a lot too.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I want to transition a little bit away from this for a minute and ask you one final question on this topic, and that's this. If there's a channel out there, Lon, a smaller channel, and they don't have the contact at YouTube yet, they're not to that point yet, but they're seeing their channel grow, or maybe it's even stagnant right now, what would be the advice you would give them over the past few months, now that you're doing this full time? Like, what would be the advice that you would give them to help them maybe get out of the rut that they're in or become undiscouraged and to continue creating their content?
The biggest mistake that I've seen people make, and I often get asked by viewers, hey, can you look at my channel and tell me what's going on? First of all, they don't put the right stuff in the titling. Like they're not making their videos search friendly. They're trying to come up with some, cute or catchy little thing, and that would work if you had a subscriber base, but if you don't, people have to find you. So if you don't tell the master computer what's in your video, no one's going to find it. So I think that's the first critical piece. The second critical piece is that they need to be on camera. A lot of people just take their phone out and talk behind the camera or do some voiceover thing, and that does work to some degree in certain areas, but by and large, I think people want to see the face behind the voice. So that's a really important piece. But also, I would say, look at what you're doing. And when I started, I was getting all this junk from China that nobody was searching for. And I was spending time, there were videos I was able to crank, 2 or 3 of these things out in a sitting, and it was good. But I wasn't getting the viewership on that stuff as I was on the $200 PC from HP. And the reason is that the $200 PC from HP has a lot of marketing behind it and a big, brand name company with a huge presence in the retail space. And there was just more consumers aware of that product and looking for it versus people who didn't, know any of these Chinese brands from a hole in the wall. So I completely stopped doing the junk. And some of the junk was kind of cool, but it was not something that was going to get a lot of viewership. And occasionally a piece of junk will come across my way that I find really intriguing and I want to share it with my audience. And I'm aware of the fact that that thing is going to do well with the subscribers on its first go around, and that's going to be it. Versus the $100 Canon printer that gets 2,500 views in the first month, will then balloon to 150,000 in 8 months, because people are looking for it. So I think you've really got to look at how are people getting to your channel. And if you are doing things that nobody's searching for, then you're just kind of spinning your wheels. So you really need to divert into an area that is more front of mind for consumers or whoever you're trying to reach, and make it searchable. And even in doing things like entertainment, which is very hard, to get people coming to your comedy show or your drama or whatever you're producing, working products in that can be searchable, I think, is a really clever way to get people over to your content. Because they're not going to find it if unless you spend $1 million on marketing. Otherwise,
right. I couldn't agree more. Now, you mentioned a good bit about the transition you made with your thumbnails, something that you did that the person over at YouTube said that it would be very beneficial to you and your channel. And I can see where you made the transition to the branded thumbnails. Maybe talk about that transition for a minute and why you think they told you to do that, and what have you seen as a result of changing and branding your thumbnails.
Well, I think it helped in the sense that I was just kind of going off of whatever. I would pick the thumbnail that had the product in the shot, and I would just upload it. And the problem I think happened is that when you don't have a branded thumbnail, you're kind of blending in with the rest of the woodwork. So now all my thumbnails have a nice yellow band on the side. They've got the logo front and center. My graphic design skills are not as good as some of the other creators out there, but I think they're working in the sense that I'm showing the product, because that really is what the consumer who's searching is looking for. And what's important is that when they're on that video watching it, and YouTube has the suggested videos coming up, if you have a consistency to your thumbnail and people like what they're seeing with the video that they're watching, they'll know that thumbnail is also from you, because it has the same visual style and language as the one that they clicked on to begin with. So I think that helps in that it's a visual consistency, especially when you're getting dropped into the suggested video portion of the thing. And generally, you don't always get a subscriber on the first video. You might get it on the third or the fourth one. I'll have people saying, "Yeah, I've been seeing your stuff over the years. I finally decided to subscribe." And that's it's just a business card essentially. It's a logo. It's a look. And I think when you have that consistency, and you'll see all the top people out there have some kind of consistency to the design, or a logo, or a character, or themselves, that gives a sense of familiarity to know that this is their video.
Yeah, it's what I call the trickle effect, where people will watch one of your videos and they see the similar thumbnail and they kind of navigate, or stumble is what I call it, over to one of your other videos. And then eventually they're like, hey, I've already watched like 3 of this guy's videos. Why not subscribe and get updated every time he releases a new piece of content? So I completely agree with that. Now, as far as like stats wise, since you've done that, since you've made the change with your thumbnails and you've branded them, a lot of the people who ask me, they're like, Dusty, go check my channel out. What am I doing wrong? Why am I not growing? And there's obviously a plethora of reasons as to why they're not growing, and I try to help them in the most, constructive way I possibly can. But a lot of times with people's thumbnails, they do what you said that you did in the beginning, and they just let YouTube pick the best thing, what they think for the video, some random screenshot from within the video. Have you seen any difference in your stats as far as suggested or related videos, or have you even dove into that since you've made the change with your thumbnails?
A little bit, and for me, it's a little tougher just because I'm so commoditized to begin with. But I've seen my incremental growth incremented faster, if that makes any sense. So I think there is a consistency to it. I get more feedback from viewers. You know what I mean? Like I think it just again, that consistency is important. And again, the fact that my YouTube guys like, you got to get your thumbnail straightened out, dude. I kind of led me to that conclusion. And I'm, I think the last time we talked, I was, under 100,000, and now I'm 137,000 on the subscriber level there. So I think that branding is really important, and branding is nothing new. It's been Coca-Cola and Pepsi and every other brand has been doing it since the beginning of time, and it works. And every area where you're trying to attract humans to remember you. So that's been consistent. So I don't think there's been like a noticeable spike, but I don't know if I'd grow it to the extent that I have without doing it.
If there is someone out there, Lon, who's listening to this interview and they're like, man, I would so love to do YouTube full time, what would be your main piece of advice or hesitation, or what would you tell them now that you've been in this season of your life for a few months doing this now, full-time creator? What would you tell them?
I think it depends on your age and where you're at in life. So for me, it was harder to go full time because I have a house and a family and all this other stuff. I think if I was 20 years old again and living in an apartment with roommates, I could totally live off the ad revenue right now. So really the most important thing is, and it's going to sound like some old man talking here, but good financial planning. And you're never too young to do good financial planning. And I think if your objective is that at some point you would like to be a full-time content creator, but you're not there yet, you're going to have to suffer for a bit to get there. I mean, you suffered, I suffered, and we'll probably continue suffering as the algorithm keeps changing. But the fact is that I had to put the work in. I had to build up cash in this business. I had to make sure that my personal finances were stabilized. I was fortunate. I had a couple of other good things happen that enabled this to happen sooner than I may have otherwise been able to do it. But you really need to plan accordingly and don't risk the farm if you're not able to sustain yourself on the YouTube revenue, because it's a very unpredictable thing, and you need to have some financial stability, especially if you have rent or mortgages or family to take care of. But I think you just have to keep with it. And a really important thing is to understand that you might think whatever you're doing is great, but if nobody's watching it, then you've got to change. And I think recognizing when something is not working, and this is my third or fourth foray into some kind of media project. The last three have not worked out. So you need to understand when your failing project is failing, because you can get 500 views on something and think it's succeeding, but is that going to pay the bills? And if it's not, then you got to make the hard decision to say, I really love this, but it's failing. So how do I make a living? And those are often, I think people have a hard time cutting the cord on something that is failing, because you don't want to admit that there's a failure. But a good entrepreneur, I think, is someone who recognizes failure and looks at it not as I failed, but looks at it as, what have I learned from this that I can now apply to the next thing? And that's where I went with a lot of what I've been doing is through everything that did not work out, I picked up some skills and knowledge that I've put into this.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said there. Definitely sit down and make a business plan, understand where you are financially and what you can do, what you can afford. If you're at a different season in your life where maybe you don't have a family, maybe it's a good time to try now and to kind of see where you land and to see if you can do this full time. So, in speaking of financially, I guess, one of the final questions I want to ask you today, Lon, is with everything going on, you said your ad revenue didn't dip too much during the whole adpocalypse thing, and mine didn't either. And I think that it probably hit the bigger YouTubers a lot worse than it did maybe the medium-sized creators like myself and yourself. But with all of that being said, what are you doing to make sure that you can support your family and continue to do this creation thing full time? What are you doing to monetize in more creative ways than maybe you were before you went full time?
One of the things going full time has been helpful about is that I can spend a little bit of time on business development. So that's what I do in the morning now, when my brain isn't so sharp in the morning sometimes. So I'm focusing on things that I can do for native advertising thing, and I'm very mindful and careful about how I integrate native advertising into what I do, because one of the other issues that I think is going to hit next after we get through all this inappropriate content stuff is all the payola that's on the platform. People who are being paid to review products or asking for money to review products and not disclosing it properly to their audience. And I think that's going to be the next wave that you're going to see hit here once, this other thing dies down. So it's going to be harder for people to go over to FameBit and just run some junk advertising on their channel without proper disclosure. And now, in fairness, FameBit has gotten a lot better about it, but there was a time when they weren't. So I've been very mindful of that, and I've probably not made as much money as I could have because I've said to brands that wanted to pay me to speak favorably about their product that I won't do it. So I think you need to look at how you can take advertising and do it in such a way that your audience is very clear about how you're doing it. So one of the things that I've been doing has been working with some mid-level brands that have very complex products and doing the tutorial stuff on a deep dive into a specific feature, and doing those as paid tutorials essentially. And it's been great for me. It's been great for the audience. They know where I'm coming from. They know that these generally I'm almost actually more than generally all the time. I don't take advertising revenue from a product that I wouldn't recommend to anybody. Right. So it's something that I'm comfortable with as a company and as a brand and as a product. And in doing things that I think are really useful for the audience and have some search value. So there's a long tail to the thing. It's harder to get those arrangements. So, but I'm growing slowly and taking this in stride and just trying to, find the best outfit here. And I think knowing that not jumping at the easy money early is going to pay off later. Because if you take the easy money and you become an infomercial channel, that's what you're going to be. And I think you're going to see changes to how YouTube begins its algorithm changes in that the infomercial channels are going to be deprecated over the ones that are not infomercials.
I'm actually very scared. I've done very, very few sponsored videos on my channel. I can actually only think of one that I actually did, and it was... Again, it was when I was a younger creator and I didn't know as much as I knew now. I did disclose the information about it, but I'm always very fearful to tell creators, jump into the sponsored video game, especially with tools like FameBid and places like that. And I'm not against those outlets or those platforms. I think they're a great asset to have as creators. But on the same side of things, kind of like what you said, Lon, it's one of those things to where if I don't like a product, I want to let my community know because my community trusts me. My community trusts me as a creator, and if I'm on there just filling their head full of fluff just because I want to make a couple of bucks, it really seems unmoral. Like it's just something that my integrity does not want to allow me to do. So if you're a creator out there, don't try to get the quick, fast buck, kind of what Lon said, and really understand that as a creator, it's your responsibility to, when you promote a product or a service, that you do your due diligence to understand what the product is and what it's going to mean for the end user who's using it. And I get probably 2 to 3 emails a day from software companies saying, "Hey, can you do a video on my software?" And they'll throw some pretty big numbers at me, and a lot of times I'm depending on where I'm at in my life, Lon, I'm like, "Man, that sounds pretty good," but then I click over and I look at the software and I'm like, "This isn't going to help anybody. There's already a free piece of software that already does this."
Exactly. And I think this is the key point here is that you need to think about what I did. And this happened over some dust up I had with an agency and a brand that I felt was acting inappropriately. When that occurred, what I decided to do, because the agency and the brand were telling me 2 different things, right? So what I did at that point is I decided, I'm going to put out there on every video exactly how this product got to the channel. Because it's not reasonable for a YouTuber of our size to, be able to buy everything that they review. So things will be sent to the channel from a brand. My preference is that they lend it to the channel, then I can send it back to them. That's the best arrangement for me. But sometimes they don't want it back. But still, there's a value to reviewing the product. So, telling people upfront, this is how it came to me. Yes, I got it for free, or no, I didn't. It's being loaned to the channel, or I bought it. You're not supposed to. You don't have to disclose that you bought something, but I do it anyhow. And I kind of laid it out for my viewership to say, here's my ethical standards that I have. So I'm not going to review a product for money, and that I'm sure is going to cost me money at some point, and it probably already has. But the question is, do you want to build a brand that your own brand that's lasting, or do you again want to be an infomercial? So I think that's the thing. And if you're very concerned about that and you really want to build a trustworthy channel on YouTube, I think committing yourself to your viewership to say what you will and won't do is a good step, because it gives you something to measure against when those offers come in. What have I told my audience? Well, I told my audience I wouldn't review things for money. So if this brand wants me to review something for money, I can't do it. And it makes it a lot easier just to say, nope, sorry. If you want to send it to the channel for a review, fine, but you're not going to have the ability to review the content. And I've had a few, big brands say, sorry, we're not doing it that way. It's like, okay, goodbye. and I bought the product and reviewed it anyhow.
And real briefly, Lon, you've mentioned a couple of ways in our previous episode together, but if there's someone listening to this and they're thinking, man, I'd like to review products, or I think I would be a good product reviewer, what are some of the best ways that you've found? Obviously, you've used the Amazon Vine program, as have other creators, but what are other ways that that people can get products to review on their channel and do it the right way?
Well, I think, the thing that I did was when I made this decision to stop doing the Chinese junk stuff, and I was fortunate to get selected into the Vine program. I don't know how anybody does get selected into it because it's a mystery to everyone that's in it, but that helped because it gave me a baseline of things to start producing against. But what I decided to do after that, the Chinese stuff wasn't working out, I said, you know what, there's stuff that I wanted to get on the channel. It's so tiny, nobody wanted to give me the time of day. I said, I'm just going to go out and buy this stuff, and anything I'm not going to keep, I'm just going to resell. So I'll get some of that money back. So there's a cost of doing business here, which is that you're going to lose a little bit on buying and reselling. Some people have said, oh, just return it, but that's not an honest way to do business either. So, and eventually I think, the companies you're buying from would get wise to you after you've bought 12 things and returned them all. So I decided, let's see if I can make a profit by buying, reselling at a loss, but getting enough viewership to counteract the loss in the sale of the item. And that's been working out really well so far. And so I do that. GearBest, which is one of these Chinese distribution companies that sells all the stuff from China you can't get here, they will send things to the channel, and that helps. So what's nice about that arrangement, it's very similar to the Amazon arrangement in that there's no direct contact with the brand that's manufacturing it. So you have a separation from the company here. So, those things are helpful too. And those have been going pretty well. But I would say, you may have to take a little financial risk. And what's been nice about the things that I buy is that generally a $200 laptop is going to get a ton more traffic than a $5,000 laptop will. Right. So you can afford to do it if you're willing to take the risk. And this is the thing. Sometimes you got to take a little bit of risk or spend a little bit of money. And that risk, is measurable. So I didn't go out and buy $15,000 worth of cheap laptops. I bought one, I reviewed it, sold it, bought another one, and 3 months later when I could look back and measure it, it worked out. And that's what I've been doing. So, a lot of these things I'm going to buy. I've got a couple laptops now I'm hoping to get rid of. And one of the things I also was able to do as the subscriber base grew is rather than sell through eBay or Amazon, where there's a huge fee that goes to those platforms, I sell through Square. They have an online store feature. So I'm paying a very little amount in credit card fees versus the 18 or 20% sometimes that eBay and PayPal will ding you for. So it's been working out pretty well.
Love that. And I think that's a great idea and a great alternative to getting things in, reviewing them, and then finding a way to get, a percentage of your money back. Well, Lon, as I knew it would be, another great conversation with you about all things YouTube. I want to wish you publicly continued success. I keep track of what you're doing just because you do a lot of similar stuff as far as technology-wise, and I love watching your weekly recap videos. So if you would, let our audience know where they can find you on the internet.
So they can find me at lon.tv. That will take you right to the YouTube channel. One of the things I need to do is build myself a separate web presence, but there's only so much time in the day. So YouTube is my primary spot right now, but I have Facebook pages and podcasts and everything else. So if you go to lon.tv, anywhere you're looking for media, typically you'll find me there.
Awesome. And guys, as always, all of those links will be in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast wherever you consume your podcast, whether it be iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Google Play. We're all over the internet. Hit that subscribe button so every single Wednesday you get an update when we release a new episode. And guys, until next week, we'll talk to you later.
You've been listening to the YouTube Creators Podcast. We want to thank you and invite you to subscribe to the show, as well as support us on Patreon for great perks, such as having your YouTube channel featured on the show and a link on our website. Until next time.